The next story, it's actually not a story, it's a little essay. And I know many, well, most of you out there are Shazbots, are solitaries. Now, a lot of us are also solitaries. I am a former solitary. I am now Coven based, but I kind of split up my practice a little bit. I celebrate aspects and festivals with my coven, but when it comes to practice, magic-wise, and what I do as far as trance work, I keep that to the solitary. I keep that inside. But a lot of us are solitaries looking for a coven, and or eventually hoping to join a coven. And I found a little article online. Yes, I am a solitary shaman and a coven witch. So, hey, go figure. To each your own. Most of us have come to this path because we like to choose our own path. That's why we're here. And if that comes with a little bit of mixing and mashing, well, blessings to you. But like I was saying, pagans are generally respectful people, but some may wonder what pagan etiquette truly is and how one should behave. So here's a few little tips while you're looking for a coven, and if you get invited to a coven or a festival or a sabbat, going from solitary to coven can be a little tricky. So there's some basic rules of the road when you're entering into a new situation. Number one, while many people have come far less secretive about their membership in pagan groups, it is never permissible to blow someone's cover. Do not ever out somebody. Do not call a friend or an acquaintance by their pagan name or their affiliation within a pagan group when in a mundane situation. Does everybody know what that means? That really means you respect other people's wishes. And if somebody, that includes when you're posting on Facebook. You know, a lot of us have Facebook accounts that have our families, our friends, mixed faith friends, Christian friends, you name it. So make sure that when you're posting things on people's Facebooks or when you're talking to people in person, it is not for you to ever out somebody. That is their ownership. It is their soul. It is their spirit. It is their body. It is theirs to permit and to choose. That choice belongs to nobody else. For many pagans, their ritual tools are very special items, which in many cases may never have been touched by another person, especially a Book of Shadows, which is never touched by anyone who does not own it. Okay? Except in the case of Book of Shadows that belongs to one coven. Okay? And in the coven's Book of Shadows, they are shared, transcribed, and equally passed around. But a personal Book of Shadows is never, ever to be touched. So if you're in a strange situation and you see somebody's Book of Shadows, never touch it. Okay? That is a big, big rule. Never assume that you have been invited to attend any ritual gathering just because a friend of yours has been invited. Don't get your feelings hurt if that invitation isn't passed along. You should have your friend ask, or you can call the leader of that group to request permission to attend. Okay? Another thing to remember when participating in any ritual of a group that you are not a member of, ask ahead of time what'll be done. There should be something in the explanation or in the setup of the ritual area. If there's anything in there that bothers you, you can quietly choose to not participate in the ritual. It is not your ritual. If you are invited, you respect how they do things. You do not correct them. This is a very tailored faith. Okay? Number 5, never proselytize your beliefs to others, no matter what the situation. There is no one true and only path in paganism. Refrain from criticizing other paths and never insist that anything must be done your way. If you feel uncomfortable about doing something, quietly and respectfully refrain. If you don't understand, then just politely ask. Okay? Another thing to keep in mind is never just walk out of a ritual circle. Ask somebody in the group who's sponsoring the ritual to cut a door for you. Okay? If you really and absolutely have to leave. Okay? That's just... It seems like a very small thing, hey, I took a diuretic this morning and I really have to pee every 15 minutes. You don't, even if you try to quietly do it, you'll be it may seem more awkward to ask for the door to be cut, but it will be more respected, and you will be more respected if you do things the proper way instead of just trying to do them the quiet way. Never assume that children are welcome or not welcomed by the group. If your child is being disruptive, you should have explained to them beforehand that this is not acceptable behavior. Some covens are very, very welcoming of children, and some covens have a problem maintaining focus when children are about. It depends completely on the coven. One is not right, one is not wrong. It just depends. Basically, honestly, I think it really depends on the age of the coven. Younger covens tend to be a lot more patient and can handle the energy of children much better than covens that are composed of older people. Mine is a coven of older people, so we have a tendency to, say, please don't bring your children. Many groups have a potluck after the ritual. It's courteous to find out whether or not you're expected to bring something and what that might entail. It's not acceptable to go to a potluck with a bag of chips or cookies and a bottle of soda. That is considered a cop-out, and it's considered very rude. Okay? It's very similar to leaving a quarter on the table even though you got great service. Okay? You leave a quarter on the table, the waitress is going to be very insulted and very hurt. It's the same basic principle. When you bring something to a potluck, you bring something that you've put a little effort into, okay? Because it's reflective of you. Never assume that a ritual will or will not be held sky-clad. Always ask ahead of time. If you're the type that's uncomfortable with people being sky-clad, then just choose not to participate in the ritual, okay? For many covens, it is required. It is your job as a guest to find out what is expected and whether or not you're going to be comfortable in the situation. Okay? Is everybody still with me? Now we're almost done, but there's a couple more. Being barefoot is not necessarily always required in circle, but it is considered polite. In some tradition, one goes unshod in respect of the sacred space, and besides being respectful of others' beliefs, you're less likely to hurt somebody by stepping on their toes. Now these are just basic things to keep in mind that you might not think of on your own when you're in a strange situation or you're attending your first. Unless specifically instructed otherwise, always move around the circle in jezal direction. Okay? That's east, south, west, north, and east. Some covens will start off in the north. It depends on your coven, but always move in a clockwise direction. Even if it has only symbolic meaning for you, if you're quite serious for others, maybe others may be very upset if you move counterclockwise in the circle. Okay? Number 14. Watches. This is not something that most people think about, but watches may be very frowned upon in a ritual space. The circle is supposed to be outside of regular time and space, and of course it's rude to keep checking the time. So please, when you are in circle, leave your watch in your pocket. Remember that the ritual fire is sacred. Do not throw litter into it, and do not light cigarettes with it or throw your butts into it. Now, the last thing that you have to remember is it is also unacceptable in some traditions not to acknowledge somebody as Lord or Lady when addressing him or her in a pagan situation if they are indeed a third degree. Okay? Just some basic rules, just, little things to keep in mind when you're going into a new situation. Okay? These are things that I have had to learn being, I started on my path when I was 14. I am now 43. I'm double checking that. Yes, it's all about etiquette. But yeah, I've made some boo-boos in circle. I mean, I've only been in circles and practicing with a coven for about a year. So, learned from my mistakes. Okay? God knows, most circles will just kind of shrug it off or give you a little chuckle or, pull you to the side and say, "Psst, hey, did you know?" And that's always welcome. Okay?